What's going on, everybody? It's TJE and Carlton Jameson on the drums. Y'all welcome to Table Talk Thursday. We're gonna take it to church real quick, y'all. All right. So we got my main man CJ Sticks, Carlton Jameson over here on the drums, everybody. And I'm TJE. Thank y'all so much for listening in. Just a few moments, we'll have Miss Deanna Witkowski on here with us, all right? So we're gonna play a little churchy tune for you here. Let's do What a Friend. You ready? Let's see what we got. Then we're gonna, after this tune, we're gonna bring Miss Deanna in. We're gonna have a little conversation, folks. One, two, three. And grief to bear. What a privilege it is to carry everything to God in prayer. Oh, what grief we often fall. Pray over needless space we bear. So because we do not carry everything to God in prayer. All right, everybody, that was What a Friend. Once again, my homeboy is in the house. I don't know what to do with myself, y'all, because we got a live and in color CJ Sticks on the drums, on the ones and the twos and the threes and the fours. Yeah, that's DJ Sticks, everybody. Carlton Jameson. And we're going to He been working so hard, y'all. We're gonna give Carlton Jameson just a little bit of a break here. And so this next young lady that I want to bring up, you guys, is so awesome. We want to thank y'all so much for joining us and tuning in. And we ask that you like and share this video. Before we bring up our great guest, I do want to let you all know, those of y'all who are keeping up with what we're doing at Jazzy Trinity Band, that we will be playing tomorrow night at Red at 28th, all right, in Greenville, South Carolina, and then next Saturday at Hoppin on March the 20th. So if you're keeping up with us, please join us at Red at 28th and at Hoppin on the next following 2 weeks. So I stumbled upon this young lady who was playing jazz hymns in First Baptist Church in Greenville, South Carolina, and it was such an amazing performance. And so wanted to get to meet this young lady. She's been blazing a trail with her jazz hymns, and so she did agree to come on here live and do an interview with me. I also have bought some of her music, some of her sheet music, some of her hymns, and also have her jazz hymn CD, her jazz hymn record on her Bandcamp. And so without further ado, we're going to bring up Miss Deanna Witkowski, formerly of New York and now residing in Pittsburgh, everybody. So y'all give it up for her. Let's see what we got here. See if we can get her on in here. Okay. Deanna Witkowski, everybody. We're going to give you a proper welcome in a second. There we go. All right, there we go. All right. So, Deanna, how you doing today?
I'm doing well, TJ. I'm glad to be here. I had a full day of classes and this is going to be fun, so I've been looking forward to it.
Most definitely. So, the way we do this is we just have a nice little conversation about. First of all, I want to talk about, just tell us a little bit about how you grew up or where you grew up and how you developed your love for music, because going back, we're celebrating Women's History Month, and so I decided I wanted to talk to women who have blazed a trail in their lives and are community leaders. And so talk a little bit about what inspired you growing up in your life and doing this, deciding to be a pianist and a musician.
Sure. Well, it's kind of funny because in some ways, looking back, I don't really remember making many choices about whether to be a musician, but I suppose I did. I mean, all the way back when I was in like kindergarten, and this would have been in upstate New York, outside of Jamestown, New York. My family moved a lot, by the way. I moved 11 times as a kid. So, yeah, I was born in New Hampshire, lived in a lot of places in western New York and western Pennsylvania. But when I was in kindergarten, my kindergarten teacher had been a serious pianist, and she had a piano in the classroom, and she had us do little musical games and sing. And she told my mom she thought it was musical, so we didn't even have a piano at that point. We had a 3-octave, like probably what you can see in your screen, little keyboard called an organaire, and the keys weren't even full size. And that's what I started with, because my family couldn't afford a piano. And my mom had like beginning piano books. She taught me some because she had played a little when she was a kid. She had played violin all through college. And then eventually we moved to another place out in the sticks in western Pennsylvania on a dirt road in the middle of the country outside of Meadville called Sagertown. And when we were there, I guess by that point, I guess I was in 5th grade. I started taking piano lessons, and my mom bartered. She was a visual artist, and she did paintings of my piano teacher. Had just had her home built, like she and her husband had built their home, and so my mom did 4 paintings of my teacher's home in all 4 seasons in exchange for a year's worth of piano lessons. And that's when I started lessons, and my mom found an upright piano for like $50, and that's what I had all through high school. So like I always wanted to play. I also played flute starting in around 4th or 5th grade. I don't remember exactly, but practicing was always easy for me to do, and I never had like parents who had to force me to do it. I always wanted to sit down and play. And then I was classical major in college, but I kind of discovered jazz at the very end of high school. So I didn't really get into jazz. I didn't even grow up hearing jazz. I started listening to it in college.
Believe it or not, I feel like we had very, very similar backgrounds, because I practically begged my mom for piano lessons. I said I put the radio to the piano, and I was like, hey, I really want to have piano lessons. And like you said, I remember vividly, like my teacher really didn't even charge $5 a lesson. And and I mean, it was just amazing how she really just encouraged me along the way. She was my principal's wife, and so it was just amazing. So yes, yeah. So let's talk about the jazz thing, because most kids don't grow up, especially I know even in the South, but I guess even in North too, and some parts of North too. Most kids don't grow up listening to jazz. So let's talk about your start with jazz and what inspired you, or when you first started with jazz, what inspired you to want to pursue jazz a little bit more.
When I was in like 11th and 12th grade, in high school, I played in like every single musical group there was, either on flute or piano. So I played in our school's jazz band, and the only thing I knew about jazz at that point was that I was supposed to play some notes that weren't written on the piece of paper, but I could read everything that was written on the paper. And so I was doing that, but I went to my director and said, what else am I supposed to do? Like, how do I learn to play this music seriously? I know, and I didn't get a lot of direction necessarily from my director. Like, he didn't even tell me, oh, go listen to Errol Garner or Mary Lou Williams or Herbie Hancock. But I had 2 friends in the band who were into jazz, a trumpet player and a guitar player. And we used to listen to recordings a little bit, sometimes in the mornings before school started. And then they took me to concerts, jazz concerts at the Eastman School of Music, which is a conservatory in Rochester, New York, that has a very strong jazz program in addition to all their classical programs. And that's when I started getting interested, but I still didn't know too much about it. When I went off to college near Chicago, I went to Wheaton College, which is not known as being a school with a jazz program. They had no jazz program, and I was playing classical music, but our one jazz teacher was a tenor saxophonist, and since I played flute, I knew that flute and sax had similar fingerings, and I thought, maybe if I study with a saxophone teacher, I can learn how to play jazz. So that's how I started. When I started those lessons, that's the first time I had someone telling me, go check out, like I was listening to a lot of saxophonists at the beginning. I was listening to Charlie Parker and Cannonball Adderley and Lester Young, and of course I was listening to the pianist too. So, but I still had no piano teacher. So anyway, fast forward a couple of years, I convinced the school, the dean of the school, who fortunately was a jazz lover, named Harold Best, and he let me take lessons in the city of Chicago. I drove in the city once a week for 2 years took lessons with a guy named Brad Williams, and they incorporated that into my major. And as soon as I started those lessons, like the first pianists I remember really listening to around that time were like Bill Evans, Errol Garner, and Blossom Dearie, who was a great pianist and singer, and I sing too. So I was just kind of like, I felt so happy when I listened to the music, and I felt that there was like all this interaction happening with the players, and I just wanted to be a part of it and learn how to do it. So that's, it wasn't even like one particular moment, but it was kind of over time and in those lessons, and really it came from listening to recordings more than anything, like on my own, that I decided I really wanted to play jazz.
Yeah, and I'm glad you said that, because I remember my experience going to Furman. One of the things that I learned was during the May experience. We took a month of May and we just delved into jazz for like 4 hours a day, and I really didn't know much about it. I was like you said, as far as being an ensemble, but when you started to really listen to the records and you get to know the people and how they played, and also our professor would tell us backstories about how Charlie Parker he sold his saxophone and got a plastic saxophone, and this is what it sounded like. I mean, it sounded like a masterpiece with like a plastic saxophone, and the story behind it. It just makes you really appreciate the history a little bit more, like you said, and just know that it's just such a rich history behind what we're doing. It's not just, it didn't just start today, but it's something that we're continuing on, definitely.
Yeah, and also I think the thing is that jazz is like a big umbrella, and there's lots of different styles under that umbrella, and also the fact that all these pianists can sound different from each other, like, and have their own distinctive styles. And I've always been, even before I started composing, which I really started composing a lot in college, but I think I always, I wanted, I'm an arranger and a composer, and I want to have my own sound or my own take on things. And that's another thing I really appreciate about jazz, is that you have the freedom to take things like, say, hymn tunes, and make them sound different, or do things with them to bring like kind of a new like life into them, to bring some surprise and some different energy into them.
All right, so let's talk about the hymn tune. So, Deanna has come to Greenwood, South Carolina, which is my hometown. Those of y'all who've known me more than 2 seconds know that Greenwood is my home. And she's also come to Greenville. So she hasn't just come to Greenville, but she came through Greenwood. So can you tell us a little bit about, tell us something about the jazz hymn movement, and about your visit pretty much down to my hometown and around this area?
Sure. Well, I think I've been in Greenville now 3 times, and with the pandemic, I haven't really been able to tour for like the last year. I had all my out of town work canceled. So it's been a little while, but I have to tell you that the first time I was in Greenville, and I don't remember the name of the place where we played because it's not there anymore, but I played downtown with Shannon Hoover on bass. We did a trio gig at a jazz club that's, like right downtown, and maybe
I think it's Brown Street or something like that.
possible. I don't remember the title, but on that first trip, I had strung some other gigs together throughout the South, and I stayed in a motel somewhere. And I remember my first time there was like, what am I doing here? Because I'm staying in this motel. I had to change my room like 3 times because it was like smoky and or they put me right by the swimming pool and it smelled like chlorine. That's like my first memory. Just pretty terrible to say. But, just reality of it. So I did, the first time I was in town, I did stuff at Furman with Dr. Matt Olson, had me come a couple of times. And on one of the visits, so I've played at several churches in South Carolina. So I was at First Baptist, my second time in town. The third time in town, I was at the Piano Museum, and I did a whole Mary Lou Williams concert there. But the second time I played with Shannon Hoover again at First Baptist, and we did a bunch of my jazz hymn arrangements, and I'm often a guest music leader at churches, and I usually include, I write original worship music too for, groups to sing, congregations to sing, choral music, but the hymns are, something that usually people know and have a familiarity with. So the way I actually started arranging hymns was way back when I lived in Chicago in the mid-90s, right after I graduated college. And I attended, first I just visited a church downtown Chicago called LaSalle Street Church. And they were having a special jazz Sunday, and they had a group that was playing more like traditional style, New Orleans type music, and I could tell that people in the congregation really liked it, but they weren't asked to like sing with the group, except for I think they did like When the Saints Go Marching In, and which was cool. But I thought, man, there's part of what I love about church is everybody singing together. And can't there be some way where the jazz instrumentalist and the congregation come together and like create music together? So I introduced myself to one of the pastors. It was my first Sunday at this church. And I just said, hey, I'm a jazz pianist, and I'm a composer. And if you ever do a jazz service, again, I would like to be involved. And they said, okay. So then they started asking me to do stuff. And I wasn't given the choices of the hymns or like anything. Like they had a committee that picked what the music was going to be for the day. So I remember the first time I played there, they did like Stand Up for Jesus. I don't know if you know this hymn, it's a super old hymn. Yeah, and I was like, oh, what am I going to do with that song? But I figured out some ways to like change the harmony and change the groove and get people to sing it. And I can't even remember the key it was in now. Like, I can't remember. I don't remember what I did. I did something, so I totally don't remember what it was, but all I did was like, okay, I had my band, I had like, so myself, I had my bassist, my drummer, and I think I had a saxophone player too, and then we just told people, because in that church they used hymnals, so it was like, okay, turn to page 238, stand up for Jesus, and just don't sing the harmony, because Deanna's going to change it all. Just sing the melody, please. So, and people did. And so I was like, wow, they all sang, they sang with us and they were into it. And then, so kind of things went from there. And then like I got a full-time job at an Episcopal church in New York City called All Angels Church. And part of the reason I got that gig, honestly, I think is because I had done the jazz services. Because they told me they wanted a pianist and a composer who played a bunch of different styles of music. We had a gospel choir, which is, which was kind of unusual for an Episcopal church. And I had like classical instrumentalists for other services. I wrote 2 jazz mass settings there. I was writing music for them or arranging music like pretty much every week for about 3 years. And so I started doing some jazz hymn arrangements there, but it almost came more out of after I left that job in like 2000. I kind of realized I had this beginnings of a body of work that other church musicians might want to use themselves. So I started booking my band, like, you know, we'd go back to Rochester and play at a, you know, on a jazz gig, and then we'd play at a church. And then music directors started asking me, oh, man, do you have written out scores? And not even just chords and a melody, like, do you have full piano scores, you know, for church music directors who are not necessarily jazz players. So I started doing that for all my sacred music. So kind of fast forward to when I recorded this record, I have it right here so you can see it. It's called Makes the Heart to Sing, Jazz Hymns. And I have it on Bandcamp too, digitally. But this was really a collection of, you know, work that I had arranged. It's 14 different hymn tunes that are super well-known ones, like Holy, 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 there is a Balm in Gilead, All Creatures of Our God and King. And these are all things that I was doing with congregations singing, but the record's instrumental, jazz trio, piano, bass, drums, that I'd done over the years, and I wanted just as much as I wanted this to be something that people could listen to, you know, who know the hymns, have associations with the hymns, and I wanted my, you know, jazz fans who aren't even necessarily church people to like enjoy the music, but I wanted it to be a resource for church musicians who wanted to do jazz in their own communities, in their own services, and didn't necessarily know where to start to look. And I think hymns are great because they're like a shared repertoire, you know, for so many churches of so many denominations, and like, you know, across theological and, you know, every kind of spectrum. And it provides a way for, you know, people get surprised because the harmony sounds different, the groove sounds different, and it even, I think, gives a chance for people singing to pay attention a little more even to the words that they're singing sometimes, you know, because some of my arrangements will extend a phrase a little and sit on a word for an extra couple, like bar, and it just gives a kind of sense of space that you don't always get when you go. You know, so yeah, that's kind of how all that started. And at First Baptist, we did a few of my jazz hymns as part of the service, and then when I was in Greenwood, that was on this, no, I can't remember if that was the same trip or not. I played at a Presbyterian church in Greenwood at First Presbyterian, and that was, they had a concert series, and my trio played on it, but they also sponsored a 4th and 5th grade girls choir called Palmetto Girls Sing. And they commissioned me to write a piece for them, and so I wrote like a new, totally new melody and tune for His Eyes on the Sparrow. And actually that video is like on YouTube. The girls are singing it with my trio. So I don't know, if you want, I can like play one of these arrangements or whatever.
Go ahead.
Okay. Well, why not actually, maybe I'll play like 2 different ones. So one that's from the record, that's kind of probably my earliest one from way back at that first church in Chicago, is my arrangement of All Creatures of Our God and King. You probably know that tune, TJ, do you? Yeah. So I'll play that for you.
Ma'am, hold up. Carlton over here catching the Holy Ghost over here. See, when you come over here, when you come over on this side, see, you gotta after you play something like that, you gotta hold up. You can't just go to the next song. You gotta let it simmer a little bit. Oh my gosh, man. Oh man. I thought I was listening to Doobie Powell or something. Golly. Thank you so much for that. That was beautiful. Yes, but you know that's the thing that before you play the next song, that's one thing that I wanted people to. I hope people realize, like with the jazz and the hymn can be so much more intimate, and it can feel. That's what I feel like. That's what jazz allows you to do. It allows you to express yourself a little bit more. It's less militant and it's more expressive, and it is more unique. And you have it gives you choices, and so you made different choices with your chord progression. But you reharmonized the chord progression, and that was beautiful. So I hope that people hear that. And they can see, how when you make it more intimate and how it becomes more interesting automatically. I just wanted to make that point real quick.
I totally agree with you. I mean, as soon as you're right about the harmony, because I think a lot of hymns, I mean, not all of them, but a lot of them don't have that many different chords in them, so if you're thinking of all creatures that were God and King, I mean, it's usually, I think this is pretty standard key of D for it. That has a little more than some other tunes, but a lot of tunes you just go back and forth between a couple chords, and just adding some different harmonies really open it up. The other tune I was gonna, I think I'll play for you is what the kids in Greenwood sang with my trio. And man, I wish I had the link in front of me. You can find it if you go to YouTube and type in my name and His Eyes on the Sparrow. But there was this one little girl throughout the entire tune. She was just grooving back and forth, and it was great because the kids were super into it. The people who were there really liked it. So the director of the choir, named Amy Fennell, she knew that I had done a jazz hymns record, and she said, could you do an arrangement for us? And she suggested His Eyes on the Sparrow, and honestly I thought, it's a great tune, but there's so many arrangements of it. So I thought, well, rather than just write a straight arrangement where I keep the melody the same, I'm going to try to write a whole new melody for the tune. So this is what that is. So. Why should I feel discouraged? Why should the shadows come? Why should my heart be lonely and long for heaven and home? When Jesus is my portion, my constant friend,
That was wonderful, Deanna. Thank you so much for that. Yes, yes, yes. So let's let the people know about your Mary Lou project, and we're going to let people know where to find your project and where they can purchase your project and support you as well. So talk about the Mary Lou project for us.
Sure. So, for actually like seriously, everything's so long now. For the last 20 years, I've been playing the music of a great jazz pianist and composer named Mary Lou Williams. She was actually from the Atlanta area. She was born there in 1910, and then her family moved north to Pittsburgh, where I am now, in her hometown where I just moved. And but she basically was a super important early big band arranger and pianist, and then had her own bands all through the 50s, the 60s, the 70s. She converted to Catholicism when she was 47 years old, and then she had a period where she wrote a lot of sacred music, including some choral music, a couple mass settings. So anyway, I've been doing, research on her life too for a long time, and it really kind of led me to Pittsburgh. But 3 years ago, I was asked by a publisher called Liturgical Press, they're a book publisher, and they asked me to write a new biography of Mary Lou Williams. There's two that exist of her, but this is one meant for a more general audience, and also kind of focuses more on her faith story as well. So that book, I'm very excited to say it's now available finally for pre-order. It's going to be released on August 15th. And it's called Mary Lou Williams Music for the Soul. And I have a whole page about Mary Lou, including the pre-order link at my website, which is deannajazz.com. I also, and this is exciting too, so I really wanted to have, the whole point out to me about, if you write a book about a musician, you want people to hear the musician's music, not just read, their story, however interesting their story may be. And Mary Lou has a very interesting story. But so I recorded in January here in Pittsburgh at a place called Manchester Craftsmen's Guild that's really committed to continuing the legacy of great Pittsburgh musicians. I recorded a new project called Force of Nature, and that will probably be out in October. We're just starting to do like all the mixing and production work now, but it's crazy that we were able to do this during the pandemic. So I was here, my bass player actually had to move, long story, during the pandemic he had to move from New York City to Austin, Texas. He drove up from Austin. My drummer came from New York City, and we recorded for a couple days, and then so that's Daniel Foose is my bassist, Scott Lasky's my drummer, and I've been playing with Scott for like 20 years, and Daniel for about 5 or 6. And they were both with me in Greenwood. And so, and Clay Jenkins, a wonderful trumpet player who teaches at Eastman School of Music in Rochester, he came for one day. We did quartet stuff with him. And then on the third day of recording, I played with local musicians, Dwayne Dolphin, amazing both electric and acoustic player, and Roger Humphreys. And Roger Humphreys, if you don't know his name, you might know who Horace Silver was. So he's on Horace Silver's Song for My Father record. Roger Humphreys is really a major part of jazz history and a major part of Pittsburgh jazz history, and it was an honor to get to play with him and with Dwayne. So anyway, all those tracks are going to be out on the new record called Force of Nature. Probably we're shooting for October, and I'll have all that information at my website. I also, I'm working on booking more things, more speaking engagements, but also concerts, doing Mary Lou stuff. And it's one thing that's been really hard with COVID is Mary Lou wrote all this choral music. sacred music, and I often would work with like at universities and churches, putting concerts together, doing that music with my trio. And singing has been the most dangerous thing that people cannot do together in a room. And so this just happened today. I'm super excited. There's a choir in New York City, called the Stonewall Chorale, and they got a grant. They're going to be working with me to do Mary the Williams second Mass, which is called Mass for the Lenten season. I don't know when that piece has been performed last, because her popular one is her third one, called Mary Lou's Mass. So it's rarely performed, and they're going to have me come in a year from now and work with them, and we're going to do that piece. So that's pretty exciting. I'm really excited to have these opportunities to have Mary Lou Williams have more of a spotlight on her.
Hey, I'm going to talk to you after this, because there may be more opportunities for you to do that mass for the Lenten season. I'm pretty sure there'll be some churches, some congregations down here that would maybe want to do something like that. That would be really cool, because I mean we've done Handel's Messiah, we do Mendelssohn. I've done Mendelssohn in Furman, but to do a jazz musician's mass would be pretty interesting. How, I mean, does it sound like a classical mass, or how is it? How would you kind of describe it?
So Mary Lou has three different masses, and it's oh, gosh, I could talk about this all night. But so her third mass is the one that it's most well known, because you could go like on iTunes right now, and if you typed in Mary Lou's Mass, you'd find it, because it was like re-released by Smithsonian Folkways in like 1995 or 96. And it's originally from like the early 1970s. And that mass, if you listen to the recording, it's gonna sound, I gotta be honest, it's gonna sound like 70s, like how 70s has a sound of like the wah-wah pedal and the flute and the like certain like instrumental things. It sounds a little dated that way. However, I've done it. I did the piece, well, geez, like a year, 14 months ago or something was the most recent time I did it, with the Rutgers University Chorale and my trio. And it totally sounds modern, because we're just using different instrumentation. So, there's funk stuff in it. There's more gospel stuff, influences. There's some things that are, there's some a cappella parts in it. There's sections of instrumental soloing, things that can be opened up. The Lenten Mass is a little more, I mean, I think because Lent is more of a season that's more kind of a quiet season, and so but that Mass in particular she got to do for 6 weeks at a church in Harlem in 1968, and so she had the whole congregation singing with her. Which I think is a really important element of that Mass. And her first Mass, the scores are basically in boxes in our archives at Rutgers University. So I'm trying to, as part of my ongoing Mary Lou advocacy, working so that eventually that piece will also get done. And that was premiered like in Pittsburgh. In like 67. I've also written 2 jazz masses. Like I have another recording called From This Place that has one of those masses on it. And that has some things that were written for congregation to sing, and some things for congregation with choir if we have it. So it has like 4 different, SATB parts. So sometimes I've done concerts where we take some of Mary Lou's music and some of my music, all sacred music, and combine them like in a whole program. So it's great though. The music is really joyful. That's the main thing I would say. People get really into it and feel like, yeah, I don't even know how to say it, but like they're surprised. They feel happy. I had so many singers from one time when I did, Mary Lou's third Mass in 2013 at a church called Park Avenue Christian Church in New York City, and every one of the singers in that choir came up to me individually and said, when are we going to do this again? You know, so it was the kind of thing that it just doesn't, the pieces don't get done that much, and they need to be known as being part of, you know, the available like choral repertoire. And it's really important, you know, that, I mean, Mary Lou, she was Catholic, she was African American, she was female, she was like, and she was doing this music that was pretty groundbreaking, and she was really trying to do it to her whole purpose. She said in her, all of her music was to bring communities together. So I think, you know, I'm just trying to continue her legacy and forward it now.
All right, so thank you so much for this, Deanna. We definitely appreciate your time being with us. We're gonna put all of Deanna's links in the chat. Once we get off of here, you'll see it. So, and also I'm gonna upload this to my YouTube page as well, so you'll see it on YouTube as well. And you're gonna see Deanna again, Deanna and TJ, Deanna and Jazzy Trinity band. You're gonna see us again because I love the whole concept. I've always had an ear for jazz. I've always loved the creativity that comes behind it and the sound that comes behind it. And also I believe that it has a place in church that we should, like you said, we should be able to teach some of this repertoire, some of this material, because it just, we don't want it to get lost. And we don't want to just continue to do the same things over and over and over again. So, Deanna, we're going to get with you definitely more about everything that you're doing, and also about your music and Mary Lou Williams' music that you have arranged. And we're going to continue to talk to our friends down here. So we thank you so much. If you have anything else you want to say to close us out.
Sure. Well, I want to mainly say thank you for having me, and it's been really fun. And I also really enjoyed like your arrangement of "What a Friend" at the beginning. That was really cool. I did want to mention one other thing, because I actually am doing an online concert, a free concert on Wednesday, the 24th of this month, at 6 p.m. for about 45-50 minutes, and I'm actually going to be playing a piano, not a keyboard. I really consider myself a pianist, not a keyboard player. I've been, since I moved, long story, but I'm raising some money to try to buy a piano here, because my piano in New York, my upright, it costs more to move than what the piano's even worth. And so I'm trying to find a piano here in Pittsburgh. So I'm doing like a sort of fundraising concert. Anybody, like any tips that come during the night or whatever, are going to go towards my piano fund. So I'm going to be playing my last concert back in New York on my old New York piano. And that's going to be on my Facebook page, so we could just, you know, maybe stick a link up for that. But that'll just be from 6 to 6:50 on the 24th. And then it'll stay there on my page afterwards too.
One more thing, you said you wanted to shout out your friend in Greenville. We want your friend to connect with us, so shout out your friend in Greenville.
So Emily Whitaker has this great boutique in downtown Greenville called Beija Flor Jeans, and I have some jeans here. And if you can see this, Beija Flor is a Brazilian word for hummingbird. And all the jeans that they have at their store are made by women in Brazil, and it's all fair trade. And I found the store. I speak Portuguese. I'm way into Brazilian music. I found the store on my first tour through Greenville, and I just had some extra time to kill before I got myself back to the airport. And I just saw like Beija Flor. I'm like, what? That's a Brazilian word, and like Portuguese word. And so I went to the store and I bought a pair of jeans, and we ended up meeting each other in the airport, like right after I bought these jeans. And I'm telling you, they are like, I mean, not that I usually am not doing product endorsements or whatever, but the company has the best customer service. I bought jeans like a year ago from them, and then I lost a bunch of weight and they didn't fit anymore, and I had never worn the jeans, and they let me exchange them. I mean, they're like They're great. So I'm just telling you, Beija Flor Jeans, downtown Greenville. BeijaFlorJeans.com is their site, and I think they're an example of a really great like local business. So I just wanted to mention them and mention Emily.
All right, shout out to Emily and Deja Flor Jeans. Thank y'all so much for joining us tonight. This is Table Talk with TJE. We got Carlton Jameson on the drums and Deanna Witkowski tonight. We're talking to Deanna Witkowski, so we want to thank her for being with us all the way from Pittsburgh, the home of the Steelers, formerly from New York. And take care, everybody. Y'all have a wonderful night. Thank y'all so much. Peace. We are out.